Good morning. Wendy Johnstone here with Family Caregivers of British Columbia. Really happy that everyone can join us for this Facebook Live. I had a moment of reflection this morning, realizing that it's been well over a year now since we've been doing our Facebook Lives. It's hard to believe in some ways the year has felt like it stood still. We've missed out on quite a bit. And in other ways, it's really flown by. So our conversation on Facebook Live, it's really meant to foster connection, insight, and education for family caregivers. And it's a real shared experience for us. We're learning from you as we're going through our work at Family Caregivers of BC and the information that you provide to us or feedback that you provide to us. We really try to embed that or use that as examples in all the work that we're doing at Family Caregivers of BC. So thank you for your continued insights and feedback and collaboration. It actually fits in today's theme, which is around how caregivers show up as essential care partners. And a lot of that is around collaboration with others, the person you're caring for, other individuals on the care team. And so we just wanted to touch base a bit about this reminders about how we show up as care partners. Our upcoming senior living article is around finding moments of self-care, small moments of self-care, and it really made me think about some of the wisdom that's been shared by other family caregivers. I've sort of taken a look back over the last year and reflected on some conversations that we've had with caregivers on coaching calls or even comments that have made through the emails and on the podcasts. And I think one of those resonating themes around how we show up is this idea about checking in with ourselves. So that can take different forms for different people. It really depends on what speaks to you and the timing of your day and what your general routines and habits are. But this idea of checking in at the start of the day on how you're feeling, it really helps bring awareness into your day, and I think also really helps keep expectations in line with the day. So I say we, Family Caregivers of BC, we love our PDF checking in with your feelings to help you identify with how you might be feeling. There's also another great resource that we use in our caregiver coaching and on our caregiver support line, which is an actual sort of mindful practice, and it has a feelings wheel. That's another great visual representation when sometimes we're having maybe a hard time finding the words to really identify how we're feeling. It's also great to have that visual piece. So that's one thing that really has been resonating over the last year, is this idea of really checking in with ourselves, giving ourselves permission to feel however we're feeling, but to really bring awareness into that moment. And also I think checking in throughout the day if you have that opportunity to see how things have been changing. So prioritizing your self-care, of course, isn't going to solve all your problems or make current stresses disappear. So like caregiving, there's going to be a lot of peaks and valleys. It's this idea of shifting our mindset, that we're embracing the idea that when we're a priority and our self-care is just as important as the person that we're caring for, it really allows us to show up as a care partner. And whether that's with the care recipient, whether that's with other family and friends who are part of that care process, whether it's with healthcare providers, when we shift that mindset, ensuring that we're a priority and self-care is just as important as the person you're caring for, it really helps us show up in a way that factors in how we're doing as individuals, but also, again, sets those realistic expectations for what we're really able to do in our role as a caregiver, but also how that integrates into our everyday living. The other, I think, really important, and this aligns with the expectation piece, we've talked about this before in the past, and I know that it's in a few of our publications, and it touch bases in our podcast, this idea that self-care, or bringing awareness into our situation, it doesn't necessarily mean that, or that's going to lead to self-improvement, but self-care really is simply about making ourselves a priority. I think sometimes we think that if we do all this self-care, that there's going to be some huge self-improvement, and that's not necessarily the goal. It might happen as a byproduct, but really the idea of self-care and self-compassion and shifting that mindset to make ourselves a priority is one of the key foundations of being able to show up every day in whatever role that is. Because even if we are caregivers, we are also usually many other things. So we might be a care partner, we might be a parent to someone else living at home with us. We could be a work colleague. We still want to be a partner to the person we're caring for in that relationship dynamic, whether it's caring for a parent, caring for a sibling, caring for a spouse. And so how we show up as a care partner also trickles into some of those other parts of our life, because as we know, caregiving is integrated into life itself. It doesn't often happen in compartments. I think this idea of, again, how we show up and the importance of self-care is that one of the things that caregivers often speak to us about is that even a small act of self-care can have a huge impact on our day. So calling a friend who really lifts us up, or saying no, or saying yes, depending on the situation. Finding 5 minutes to have a cup of tea or coffee in silence, or just even closing our eyes and breathing in and out for 10 breaths. Those are all simple acts of self-care, but they can have a huge impact on our day. So we really wanted to bring forward this key message that when we're showing up as an essential care partner for the person we're caring for, it also means that we're showing up for ourselves. And we touched on a little bit about self-awareness, and I'd like to just bring up a few more points around self-awareness is at the root of being able to show up as a caregiver. So how we look after ourselves is very deeply personal and unique for each of us. And self-care practices, they all have a common thread of knowing ourselves. So it's really about acknowledging how we're feeling and seeing and hearing ourselves in a situation. And that also includes what comfort will meet our needs in that situation. Because that really lends ourselves to giving ourselves a bit of a break, but doing things that when we need them really lift us up or comfort us, which in turns then creates momentum to be able to have more energy or more time or more space to be able to show up for the person that we're caring for. So taking these moments, checking in the morning or checking in throughout the day or even at the end of the night, I think about Family Caregivers BC, the journaling workshops. They all allow us to notice our thoughts and emotions as they arise, which then provides this opportunity to support ourselves in taking the action that is going to best support us in that moment. So self-awareness is really important, to help implement self-care strategies. So one of the exercises or one of the key phrases that we encourage family caregivers to use, and we even use them for ourselves, is asking ourselves, what will support me in this moment? And just something as simple as that. Often we can take a moment to reflect and think, okay, do I just need 5 minutes to myself and just to close my eyes and relax, or do I have this pent up energy where I want to get out for a bit of a walk? And how can I honor that? How can I make that happen? Do I have a whole bunch of cluttered thoughts up here and I need to either speak to someone or journal them out? But that whole question of asking ourselves, what will support me in this moment, is a really important question, to keep top of mind. Engaging in those self-care practices that help meet our own needs really help support us to feel more grounded or recharged as we care for others. I think the other, really important reminder, and I know sometimes I feel like I can be a broken record sometimes. I'm a big believer in having, statements that I, use for myself when times are challenging or when I want certain reminders. Sometimes I think we forget how much we actually do, and so one of the things that I also like to reflect on is to look back and to look how far I've come. So sometimes it's hard to see all the changes or all the practices that we might be implementing because we just sort of adjust or we keep moving forward. So sometimes it's actually reflecting back and going, oh yeah, look how far we've come in 3 months or 6 months. Even if they're small, it's really good to acknowledge and celebrate some of those changes that we've been seeing. The other really important thing around self-care is this idea to be nice to ourselves. And I think as caregivers and even as human beings, we can be really hard on ourselves and expect so much from ourselves. And when we're not able to meet those standards that we impose on ourselves or we feel others might impose on ourselves, it really creates this sense that we're not doing enough. And so this idea of what we call self-compassion is really on the job and in the moment self-care. So this idea of self-compassion, it doesn't require a break from caregiving like some other types that we've just talked about, but it's really the ability to notice when we're struggling and to see and hear ourselves and to show kindness to ourselves the way we would show kindness towards another person. It's really giving ourselves permission to meet our own needs rather than judging ourselves or focusing on this perceived inability to cope. And I really like that wording, that self-compassion is on the job and in the moment self-care. And it's equally as important as some of those other activities that we engage in when we have a little more time and a little more space. I'm going to come back to the statement that we talked about self-care doesn't mean self-improvement. And I think it's a really powerful statement. I think sometimes we can fall into these traps of, well, if I do all this self-care, there's going to have to be some type of improvement. And obviously we hope that there is over time. They might be really small incremental changes, and which I think brings me back to the other point about how being able to reflect back and to be able to note some of these changes and celebrate these changes is really important. But activities of self-care is just it's really this shift in mindset that you're prioritizing yourself, you're putting yourself and your needs on the same level, if not higher than the person you're caring for. It doesn't always work every day that that's going to happen, but that mindset that our needs are equally important, I think is a really important one for the ability to care over a long period of time. So, and we also know that just generally, when we do have self-care or we look at ways to honor our self-care, that it's going to have positive effects on our health. But the main goals of self-care are to meet your own needs and to feel better cared for and grounded in your everyday role as a caregiver and in whatever other role you're taking on in that day or in your current situation. So with the caregivers that we support, another one of these key statements is asking, what's your non-negotiable today? So in addition to that, check in, sometimes asking ourselves, what's the non-negotiable today? And it can look very different depending on the day. That's just another cue that sometimes I like to use. If you want to go deeper into the taking care of yourself, we have a fabulous downloadable. It's called Taking Care of Yourself, Self-Care Strategies for Family and Friend Caregivers. And it has a caregiver self-assessment and some other really good reflective activities. So that's another area where if you want a little more information, or you want to go a little bit deeper and you have the time and space to do that, we certainly encourage you to take a look at that resource. Staying connected, I think, is another way, depending on how we like to recharge, or how we like to be able to find support with others. So staying connected, however that looks to you, whether it's connecting with other caregivers, whether it's connecting with a really good friend, to be able to share in how we're doing is a really important part of self-care. A large challenge for family caregivers, as we know, is feeling isolated. And there's so many pieces to caregiving, and lives can get very busy, and juggling many roles and responsibilities. It can sometimes be hard to make time, or to find time to honor some of those relationships. So a reminder to think about who's in your support circles, who you can rely on regularly, can also really be essential when showing up as a care partner, and really shouldn't be left to chance. So that brings us to the end of our Facebook Live today. We certainly always appreciate your comments and your feedback and your questions. If you have other resources that you find really helpful, we're always open and happy to learn more about that. And a reminder that, of course, you can stay up to date through our e-news, through our social media posts. Our caregiver support line is available Monday to Friday. I have to be honest, we have just changed the hours, and I'm going to have Kate or Carly put those hours in the comments. But I do know Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. We have a couple of evenings where we're open a little bit later as well. Our podcasts have been extremely popular, and we have some really great guests that come on and share their own personal experiences and great strategies. So I hope today was a nice way to remind ourselves about the importance of our own self-care and how we can show up as care partners. And I hope you'll join me in asking yourself, what's one thing, big or small, that you think you can do that you think you can do today or tomorrow as a way to bring more self-awareness into your self-care, self-compassion. And we look forward to seeing you the next time. I hope you have a wonderful week and enjoying this wonderful sunshine and weather. And Monday, it looks like, for anyone who's caring for someone in long-term care or assisted living, it looks like those guidelines are going to be relaxed, which I know is going to be incredibly positive for so many of those caring for seniors in long-term care facilities and assisted living. So that'll be wonderful to see that into action next week. All right, all the best, and we'll see you soon.